Dreamers, you know the deal. Go ahead and drop where you're tuning in from in the comments so I know I am officially live. It is a new year. This is the first LinkedIn Live I am doing of the year. I'm on a brand new computer, so I'm still trying to adjust where the camera is and the mic and stuff. So if I sound crazy, let me know and I'll try to fix my audio because I know everybody always says I sound like I'm screaming because the Yeti works too well. I am so excited today to be talking about how to help us as career coaches better serve our clients with not only a professional recruiter who is like in the front lines of helping our clients find fulfilling careers, but also founded an organization that helps coaches, hiring teams, recruiters better align candidates to roles. If you are a job seeker, do not feel like you have to leave. This assessment is ultimately for you to help guide you and help uncover some things that aren't coming to you. It's really hard to read the label when you're inside of the jar. And sometimes getting an outside perspective is helpful, which is why we work with coaches. But oftentimes it's limiting because as a coach, we have to rely on what our clients say to be able to come up with ideas about what may be happening. And sometimes things go unsaid because maybe we don't have that clarity. Maybe we're fighting something that's going on internally within ourselves. And so when I stumbled upon this resource, I knew that I had to talk about it and get others to be aware of it because it takes personal assessments to a whole entire another level. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring Marci to the stage. Here we go. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome, Tegan. Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. And Tegan, I know you said this is your first LinkedIn Live of the year. So this is my first LinkedIn Live of my life.
Well, you are in good company. So Marci, Elle says hello from Colombia. Aaron's here. Michaela's here. Tammy's here. Sonia's here. Sarah's here. I mean, there's so many people in this news feed that are here supporting you and excited to listen to what exactly it is that we're talking about today.
Okay, fantastic. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see such a diverse group of people from all over. It's incredible. So I just give you a quick overview before I sort of get into the deep details. So my name is Marci. I have been in recruiting for a long time, over 20 years. I've worked with startups to very large corporations. I've placed entry-level people to C-level. And really the crux of my career and what has allowed me to make things happen and do what I do is really the combination of career coaching and recruiting, because they go hand in hand and they're each sides of a coin. And so without being able to work with people to help them represent themselves in the best way that they can and to showcase not only their skills and education, but to showcase how they contribute to organizations, to their team members, to their communities, and what makes them a good fit for a job. That's ultimately what I'm doing as a recruiter, because I was with an agency. So I started an agency called New Media Links. And so when you're an agency recruiter, you are selling the job to the candidate and you're selling the candidate to the job and you're helping the candidate, sell themselves. And I use sell, for lack of a better word, but it's really getting clarity from all parties to make something happen and to make it really the way that I've worked on my career. And I think that anyone who looks at my LinkedIn profile can see the testament of this are my recommendations. I've always tried to work in the best interest of both parties. I've always wanted to make sure that the candidates that I'm recruiting, that it is in their genuine best interest, that the position that I'm offering, that the client that I'm working with, because when I do that, it's a win-win for the client and it's a win-win for the candidate. And that has allowed me to the longevity of my career. So
that is, I'm sure, music to all the job seekers' ears in the comments and even the career coaches. Because, like, at the end of the day, we want to know that our recruiters are invested in the candidates, that it's not just about the transaction. And that's what makes the best recruiters, is that they care about both sides, which can frequently lead to burnout. But you have made it as a professional recruiter and have driven innovation in your space. So tell us, what exactly is the assessment?
So that's exactly what actually what you just said is exactly what happened. After about 10 years, I was, kind of getting burnt out. It was a lot. So I went on an exploration to look for something new and something different that I could leverage my own skills and continue to work with my network and what I was doing. And I went and I took a trip to New York City, and I went to a conference for executive search consultants, and I met a behavioral scientist. And Dr. Janice Presser, she gave a presentation about this new technology that she had created called role-based assessment. So I'm going to start the presentation here. I'm going to get into what it actually is, and then as we go, I'll tell a little bit about how I've used it with my career coach lens on, and then how for those people in the audience that are coaches, how you can use it to help you become a better coach, and in turn you're helping your clients be able to understand themselves and represent themselves and all the things that they need to do to be able to fulfill their dreams, what they want for their career. And this goes with not only and especially now there's a shift in the market, but this goes for people not just necessarily looking for a job, because I think that those days are all a lot behind us. And I think a lot of people are setting themselves up as entrepreneurs, independent contractors, vendors. I mean, there's a whole, their own businesses. There's a whole slew of words, and they still need coaching. Everybody does. Even coaches need coaching. It's circular. It's not hierarchical. So that's really important, and this tool can be used for in any of those settings or any of those circumstances. It's not strictly for trying to put somebody in a job per se, because I think we all recognize that that's just not a model for everybody anymore.
Yes, this is not an assessment to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. This is an assessment to really dive deep into what behaviors drive you? How do you want to be recognized? What are your strengths in collaborating? Some personality traits, but that goes way above like discs or strengths or any of the other ones. When Marci first brought me to this, I'm like, I just don't understand. I don't get it. And then I took it and I got my assessment, and I was like, holy shit, like, whoa. This is incredible. So, all right, go ahead and share your screen so we can kind of
I will share my screen.
See it. And if it's being buggy with you, I can try to.
You know what? If you don't mind, Tegan, because I think it's not showing up. It's on a side monitor. So.
Okay. So let me.
Oh, maybe. See. Oh no, I got it. Actually, Tegan, no, I got it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Ta-da. Okay. Technology.
Okay, now let me put it up. Okay, here we go.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so revolutionizing assessments, a new approach for coaching success. So I gave a little bit of an introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the change in perspective. I'm going to talk a little bit about actually understanding the tool. I'm going to talk about my personal experience with it, and I think Tegan's going to jump in and talk a little bit more about her experience, and then reflections on the current recruiting and coaching processes, and then the state of kind of where we are now, and then why there is this need for change, and then the possibilities for achievement and advancement, and then we'll just do a quick conclusion, and then I'm happy to take questions.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Okay, so voila, here I am again. So I've got 20 years plus of experience, 10 years without using a tool, and 10 plus years using the tool. So I'm so I got lots of experience. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a recruiter, I'm a coach, and I'm a mom. And I think that being a mom has really also contributed to, my learning of all of this things, tremendously. So I think it's really important, because really this whole new approach is about looking at the whole person and valuing all the experiences, because often as women, we take time out, to have a family or to care for family, or in whatever, however we do it. And a lot of times we ourselves don't realize the value of that and what we've learned in doing that, and how we can take those learnings and that value and share it with organizations that we want to work for. So that's why I thought it's important to include it in there, and I'll show you how that plays into things.
Yeah, shout out to all the parents in the group. It is a whole entire different ball game when you are responsible for caring for another human being's life, whether that be your family members at the end of their life, or a child of your own. It will change the results of your assessment.
And then just talk a little bit on, we're going to talk a little bit about how traditional methods of evaluating ourselves and candidates, and see where we can make some changes. Okay, so this is the real change in perspective. So I attended the conference in New York City in late 2009. And as I mentioned, I met Dr. Janice Pessler, the co-creator of the assessment. And what Opasuna measures, and it was called at the time role-based assessment. So I bought the IP and I rebranded and changed the name. But it's still the same engine. It's the work of two behavioral scientists that spent 20 years of field research and 10 years of software development. So what it measures is coherence and stress management. So the next thing it measures is a role, a corporate function, or a need of a team. And then it measures our actual behavior, our unique abilities, and the way that we make contributions to teams.
So when I said earlier that I was surprised at how in-depth it went, this is a big part of it, because how we feel we handle stress isn't always maybe what we're willing to share with someone else, but it is a big part in how and why we're successful at different types of companies. So as coaches, being able to help someone better align what their tolerance level is can help them decide, do you want to work for the Tesla, or do you want to work more for a type of company that has a different level of stress and work-life balance? For those emerging leaders, what level of leadership are you ready for? For those individual contributors who are being pushed to go into a people leadership role, but know that they really want to stay an individual contributor, this can help bring some synergy and some confidence to the process of making such difficult career decisions. Whether you're taking this assessment on your own and having Marci give you a rundown of your results, or if you're collaborating as a coach and you're using this on your clients, and then you supporting them through unearthing what their results share about them.
And the reason why coherence is so important, and you can see from the image that I selected, that I Googled coherence and then images, you can see the puzzle and the pieces are connected. And it's so important, because when we're under a lot of stress, it makes it more difficult to connect. And then it's a vicious circle, because the less we are connected, the more stressful it becomes. So when we get our results, and if they indicate that there is a level of stress, the reports actually give us specific things to our unique situations that can help us reduce the stress and handle the stress. How can we connect better with other people? So when we understand what role we play on a team, and we can articulate that, and then we can ask the right questions of other people, so that's connecting. And
Yep.
The more that we can connect, the stress, can level. We can address,
approach to managing your career.
Exactly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal experience. So this is a clip from a publication back in the day when I tagged my husband's last name. I'm still married, but I dropped the hyphen Raphael. You see, it's just all about change and, growing into, who you are and what you want to do. Um, so this was published. An executive recruiter discovers a new way to know, and this is a new way to know. A new way to know ourselves. So what I learned about myself, and I wrote this down, and this is fairly personal. So I'm going to share something very personal that I never really shared before anywhere. So the first thing that it measured is I'm a strong vision mover. So this is my role on a team. What I do is I help people with their vision. So the clients and the candidates move their vision. That's my job as a recruiter, move the vision on all sides. As I mentioned, selling to the client, selling to the applicant or candidate. Now, these reports are long. I only took out 2 little snippets, but this one really hit me hard. This was back in 2009 when I first discovered it. So it says she sees herself as having a lot of initiative, but this has likely been blunted by her lack of opportunity. So I knew this deep down, but I really didn't want to kind of face it, or really I didn't understand how it was affecting me. So it's obviously no fault of my own if I had a lack of opportunity.
Okay, so for everybody in the comments right now, because I see a lot of job seekers in this, if you feel like you have been stunted by opportunities and you're like, yeah, that's my problem, I want career growth, go ahead and put a like or put something in the comments about your story. So that way we can kind of have an engaging conversation. And Erin, go Chiefs. Okay, now you can be friends with Tamika.
So when I was reading through this, there was a lot more obviously in the report, and there were some phenomenal self-development sections which I used, which propelled my business and my career and myself personally. But this was a real big one, and what this did is it actually validated to me. It was an outside validation, like, yes, I did have initiative, but when I'm interviewing, and as a business person, you're always interviewing, you're always looking for your next job, your next client. So it's really no different than anything that any other job seeker goes through. And I always say, I traded having one boss for having, 10 at a time or 20 at a time sometimes, So, so what I did, so I recognized that, hey, while I didn't have, all of these accolades to show, particularly with me in my education, didn't take away any less than my behavior. That just because that I didn't take initiative. That sometimes most of the time, things are outside of our own personal circumstances. So that's why it's a new perspective. It's not necessarily looking at ourselves and beating ourselves up. It's about looking at the bigger, wider system and how can we work it. So I will just continue to the next slide. Okay, so reflections on coaching and the recruiting process. So if we look right now, and I'm not going to get into the details, but if anybody wants to write in the comments, feel free. When we look at best practice interview assessments and current recruitment processes, I've been on TikTok lately, and I will say that there's a ton of terrible processes, a ton of complaints. I don't think anybody's happy. I've not seen a TikTok said, wow, I went on this great interview and the process was amazing. And, even though I didn't get the job, it was still a great process. And so the process is really, I think, if anyone disagrees, feel free, like I said, write in a comment. But I think
the job system is flawed. The recruitment system is flawed. It's broken. And that's something that as career coaches, we have to help job seekers navigate through. How do you get in this flawed system, in this broken system, to make sure that our clients or these job seekers are going to find not only a company, but a role that's going to align with all the things that they value most? Because at the end of the day, if we're not happy in our job, it trickles over to every other aspect of our life.
100%, Tegan. And then this is kind of part and parcel. The next comment is, if we look at well-known personality and psychometric assessments, we get more of the same because these are what, what's being used, and even what we take ourselves. And a lot of times, and I've heard this so often, oh, my personality isn't right for sales, or my personality isn't right for project management, or you hear it all the time. And, it's not, so I think that what we're using currently is quite limiting and really putting people in boxes. And I would say especially, women and, people of color, and, just putting us in boxes. And it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm just going to go to. So this is sort of the pipeline. I got this right from McKinsey & Company 2022. So this is what the current pipeline is. So there's modest gains of representation over the last 8 years. Women, and especially women of color, are still dramatically underrepresented in corporate America, especially true in senior leadership. 1 in 4 C-suite leaders is a woman, and only 1 in 20 is a woman of color. So if these systems were so good, I don't think that we would have this current state of in the pipeline. So we need to make some changes.
Yes.
So I think that the biggest shift has to be from individual performance to team and organizational performance. I think we have to start when we value ourselves, and this is what I was sort of getting to when I talked about being a mom. If we have to value ourselves, not necessarily what we did as an individual, but how we contributed, and how we contribute in any situation, how we contribute at work, how we contribute, maybe if we volunteer, how we contribute to our communities, how we contribute to our families. It's about how we contribute. And so once we start to take this different perspective, then there's possibilities for achievement and advancement. But it's only when we shift, because here you can see in my image, this is just an individual, and here's all the people, here's all the people underneath the individual, which, obviously we need to change.
On the assessment that I took, which I'm sure is just like the standard, like first page of it, one of the things that it says is keep in mind that your report is about you, about your potential, and about what you can do to develop that potential to bring you more of the rewards that are out there for you. So that's a part of what this assessment is, and how it's different, and how it can transform really the job, the recruitment process, the hiring process, the job seeker process. Because when organizations put talent in the right places, and when people know themselves well enough to be able to know where they're best suited, regardless of whatever box people have tried to put you in the past,
exactly,
it can bring a more the diversity of thought and the opportunities that you might not have otherwise considered. Because there's a couple of people in the comments right now, like Jury, for example. She just switched from a radiologist to a DevOps engineer. In 6 months, she, completely re-educated herself, and within a 1-month job search, landed her first role, from going from healthcare to tech. This is a box that traditionally Black women aren't put in. They're not put in, oh, you could be an engineer. No, but it's really common to say, oh, well, you could go to healthcare. And so when you look at it, when you deeply learn to understand your potential and where there's some synergy there, you can open up your eyes up to what else might be possible for you. Because it's really, really difficult to, especially a couple of people in the chat, I know that they've been in their roles a long time. People who've worked at Google for the past 20 years who were unexpectedly laid off, or, during these rounds of layoffs. And it's, well, now what? And that now what can be really difficult and really stressful. So getting an inside look at yourself from a science-based AI machine learning type of an assessment can help bring some clarity that otherwise would take a really long time to freaking figure out. Which, when we talk about my assessment, everybody will be able to understand what we're talking about.
Even when I got mine, I can't tell you, how many, therapy sessions I paid for, or coaches business coaches to help with the business. I couldn't believe that I could do an assessment and have, really tremendous value.
Aaron says, coming from a very forward-thinking company, our president is a man, but 9 of his vice presidents and 7 are women, 5 of color, and only 2 men. It's a welcome change. Yeah, everybody's ready to have change in our organizations and to have better hiring practices and have better leaders, because Sarah Johnston, a coach that I really, really respect, she had just made a post the other day about how your leader's influence plays a significant impact on your career trajectory, because if they can't have buy-in in the organization to help you grow and flourish, then you're gonna have to look for that elsewhere. And when you get to that point where, okay, well, what else is there out there for me? These types of things can be helpful. And companies who aren't embracing these types of changes will need to start using an assessment like this. But are those types of companies that progressive job seekers just want to stay away from?
And I think that's a good point, Tegan. I think that progressive job seekers often seek career coaches. And I think that, career coaches really have to be aware of tools that are out there that can help the coaches and their clients. So, kudos, for taking the time to do this today. I'm really, thrilled that we're doing this. And I think that my next slide actually leads right into what we were just talking about. As career coaches, here's the demographic of all of the clients. They're here. I think everyone's had a little bit of time to read them, so I don't necessarily know that I'll read through them, but everyone can see that this is really these are the new demographics, and those old ways of assessing really don't work. And I think there's a lot of literature about this. There's one book called The Cult of Personality. There's another one, Personality Isn't Permanent. I think that more and more people are starting to understand that that we should really value ourselves, because that's where it all starts, is how we value ourselves.
And it's okay for us to be fluid.
Absolutely. Okay. So we need to change the way I've mentioned, just that we value ourselves and we value others, and we need to emphasize team contribution in solving problems, achieving goals, to create a bright future for everybody. So that's really, when people are going on interviews, or myself, I'm pitching my services to clients, it's always about how can I solve your problem in collaboration with you. I have to. That's really the key, and that's what my clients are looking for from me. I think that's what job seekers are looking from their career coaches, or people who are in transition are looking from their career coaches, or even life coaches, or any kind of coach. That's what people need help with. And it's a team. It's always a collaboration. Nobody can do it themselves. Nobody can do it. These things by themselves. So it really is. Everything really is always a team effort. So my next slide. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions. I don't know how much time do we have left, Ian.
Did we schedule a half hour or an hour? How much time do you have, Marci?
I have time. I'm just not sure how much time on this there is on this.
No, we're good. If anybody it's hard to do Q&As over video versus like LinkedIn audio room. But if anybody if anybody who's watching this has a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. If you're watching this on replay and have a question, you can put it in the chat and we'll get back to you. You can privately DM us. This is how you connect with Marci. She is a professional recruiter, and she does use this platform and helps others use it, whether at the organization level, coaching level, personal level. And as we're seeing if anybody has any questions, I want to share a couple of things about my assessment, because if you're thinking, I don't need to take another assessment to help me in my job search, or my clients aren't going to want to pay for anything else, why would they want to pay for an assessment when they could take, one of the other assessments for free, whatever. So there's different categories of people, and each results for these different categories are different based on how you do it. And so when I took this assessment, I really struggled with it. There's 10, 12 questions?
There's 10 movie scenarios. And so the participant goes through and reads each movie scenario, and we have to choose the role of the movie we would like the most, the role we would like the least, the role that we think other people would select us for, and the role that we would not be selected for, or we have the option to say none of the above.
And y'all, I am going through a major life transition right now, and it was so hard. I was so torn between, do I choose this one or do I choose this one? And what it came down to, and mind you, I was taking it just to kind of get a feel if this is something that I thought would benefit my clients. I wasn't doing it with a coach prepping me for what it was. And what I ultimately decided after like the second scenario was, I'm just going to be true to how I feel right now, which is different than how I might feel at a different point in time. And so there's these different roles, and it's like, they're really nuanced. And there's some things where you're like, well, traditionally I would like this role, but based on how they describe this character's personality, that's not me. I'm going to pick this one instead. And it picks out so many different nuances to what you're going through and what motivates you. It was fascinating. So in my result, you're a vision mate. What are you?
So when I first took it 10 years ago, I was founder vision mover.
Okay.
And now I'm vision mover founder. So again, the switch, because I've had to switch in how I'm building my businesses. So it is very much about the present. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm a vision former right now at this point in my life. And what it said is, as a vision former, I'm at the heart of my team. You will most likely work well with many people. Your personal satisfaction and productivity will depend in part on your ability to work well with others. Now, this is crazy because, for those of you who knew me, which it looks like a lot of you already do, I worked for almost a decade for Department of Labor agencies in the career services space. Lots of red tape and low budgets that I had to deal with. I sold out to make more money as an agency recruiter. Was at the top of my incoming class, was being tapped for different opportunities. It was great, but I hated what I was doing, which is ironic because now I work for multiple executive search firms. And so at that period of my time and the way that they ran their business, it wasn't in line with what my values were. It was very cutthroat. It was disrespectful at times, let's just put it that way. Where now the firms that I choose to partner with, they're collaborative. They want to see their clients succeed. And in my coaching business during the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, I worked with a lot of corporate organizations, emerging leadership trainings, recruiter trainings, internal mobility projects. And then when the pandemic happened and companies had to cut budgets, I started working with even more job seekers. I mean, I had always worked with private job seekers, but I was solely working with job seekers and I felt so burnt out. There was just a piece of it missing, and that was that community. And then I started offering group coaching sessions, and the clients who participated in the group coaching sessions landed jobs so much quicker than clients who didn't have that network of support system, primarily because their personalities were also drawn to community. So it's really interesting how just little details like that can help set you up for your next role. Am I going to be on a deserted island? No. If that's the position that I'm being recruited for, or that I'm thinking I might be called to, I may really want to reconsider that, because this is saying you need to work well with others. And that can help you better identify some of your core values and the principles, your strengths and weaknesses.
Language that you can use on your resume and in your LinkedIn profile. If anyone checks me out, sees my LinkedIn profile, I've incorporated actual verbiage from my report, which says that my unique ability is identifying talent and nurturing that talent to ensure that the organization's future. Hence my job primarily as a recruiter, not as a career coach. Where I think what's really interesting, Tegan's unique ability was the other spectrum was, I'm paraphrasing, but it was that her unique ability is helping people to achieve their goals. Do you have it in front of you
Yeah,
exactly?
I've got it in front of me.
Amazing.
It says, as a vision former, your strength is in shaping other people's ideas into practical forms. But to do this effectively, you require ideas to shape. It is not that you cannot come up with ideas on your own and shape them and mold them. You mold them into something better, which is what I do as a career coach every day, and somewhat what I did in my leadership roles when working for the government. Congress ultimately decides what we are able to do, and then I have to get really creative to find a way to make them work.
And I think really this collaboration is a good demonstration of this as well, because I'm a bit like a vision mover, but Tegan, you really took the vision and you formed it, and this format that we're using is really a format to help me to express, what I'm doing and move my vision. So this is the collab. Like I could never, just do this on my own. I just wouldn't even have the wherewithal. As I said, this is my first LinkedIn Live.
Well,
I just
something that I liked
so
about the assessment too is it also talked about my weaknesses, and that's really difficult for people to identify. And I think my weakness, it was something like, I have the nice report in front of me, the other report that, so there's two reports, one that you get as the taker, and then one that the coach gets to see behind the scenes that goes into some more in-depth things that can be discussed. And that's fantastic for leadership, right? If anybody's ever worked in an organization where you have to do assessments, I know like 4 years ago I had a corporate client who was doing assessments for the whole entire department during a department restructuring, and based on that assessment they moved different players around, and a lot of people were really upset by it because they didn't understand that it was really for their benefit. For me, if I'm working on a team and I don't feel like someone is doing their fair share of the work, I'm going to be irritated, because if somebody doesn't have the hustle that I have, and it negatively impacts my people, it's a problem for me. And that's a weakness. That's something that I have to deal with every day and be transparent about and work around and keep myself in check on. But not everybody wants to see those things for themselves. And so, yes, this report has a lot of great things that can help you better articulate yourself in an interview and on your LinkedIn profile, about especially your about section, and even in writing your resume. But it also talks about the dark side of the coin too, those areas on what you might want to consider. And one of the things that this does is tell you at what level you might be appropriate for. And Marci was surprised at my level. So explain why you were surprised at my results.
Well, okay, I wasn't. Again, I wasn't. I don't know if I would say overly surprised, but you don't know you don't know people. Like you can never,
Yeah.
like the things on these reports, you can never actually know. I don't know that anybody can look and say, oh, she looks like someone who's been blunted by her lack of opportunity. But if I got into the details of that lack of opportunity, I'm sure jaws would drop. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. So we can never, we can never know. So in our collaboration, Tegan, and I would have, and everyone makes assumptions. I would have seen like, oh, top level, right? But so when yours came out, I think it said mid-level. I was like, oh, that's interesting, mid-level. I'm like, I went, and I was a bit nervous. I'm like, oh, I wonder how she's going to take it, like, because some people.
And we as coaches do that. We get nervous when having those constructive conversations with our clients, because anytime someone's in coaching, it's because they want to take actionable steps to advance in their career. And when something there's a I'm a business owner, right? As a business owner, you're at the top. I've got lives depending on me. My team depends on me sustaining my business to support their families. And so I understand, where it came from, and any of the coaches tuning in, we all know how that feels to just be like, this might not be in alignment with like what this said or what you're saying or whatever. So, okay.
So So, but you know what? We discussed it, and you had said, "Hey, you know what, Marci? This is perfect. This is actually where I want to be right now. I am not looking for the corner office. I'm doing other things. I'm busy, and I've got other things on the go, and this is accurate for me right now." And so, what I would do is, let's say I was recruiting and I had that information, we wouldn't waste time. We would
Yeah.
say, okay, Tegan, this is like a C-level job. So, if I just tapped you, I'd say, okay, this isn't the right thing. But when I have something that's more a fit, I'll get in contact with you. And then if I was, if I was a career coach and I was working with somebody and they were saying, well, I want to go for the C-level, and the report showed that maybe they would be better at, a mid-level until they got some more experience or whatever it is they needed to hone in on. We would talk about that. We would say, okay, you can go for that, but if you don't get it, here is why.
Yeah.
But if you go for something, that's more aligned, you have more likelihood of success. And then do these things, which the reports actually give self-development.
Yes.
Do these things, and you'll see your career trajectory. And the opposite has happened too. I had a candidate that I called on through LinkedIn. Her profile looked great. I had a VP position, and I called on her, and she was at director level. And when I'm looking on LinkedIn, I'm looking for people who want to make the next moves. Like, that's part of what I'm doing as a recruiter.
An executive recruiter.
Yeah. So she said to me, no, that's too high level. I don't want, whatever. I don't remember exactly. I said, okay, well, here's my process. Why don't you do the Opasuna, and let's talk after C, and she was open. We did it. I mean, all the Opasuna screened C-level,
Yeah.
and
is it imposter syndrome, or
is
it something's going on in your life that somebody doesn't know behind the scenes? Maybe you're now a caregiver for a loved one. Maybe your child's, having a difficult pregnancy and you want to be there for them versus taking the next step and being just, even that much busier. There's so many things that the results can show. Well, hey, what is it behind the scenes that you're not saying or not willing to think about just yet, or don't have the capacity to emotionally be vulnerable to go that deep for yourself yet, which is a powerful thing.
And there's so much going on as well, whether you're actively looking or someone's just calling on you, or something happens at work and you don't, the next day you don't have a job. I mean, that's very stressful and not, and very difficult. So it's hard to really be thinking of all the options. Yeah. So this is taking a step back and really evaluate. It helps us to evaluate, where we are, what we have to offer. And, I know you mentioned weaknesses, but there really isn't a section that says weaknesses. It really says self-development.
It does.
And nobody is perfect. I had, on mine, I had, when I took it 9 years ago, I had some, and then when I took it recently, I had some different ones.
Yep. Well, so one of the things that a lot of coaches deal with is clients who are happy in their organization. They're just ready to take that next step. And how do you partner with your sponsor, with your leadership? For those of you who are tuning in, there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. A mentor is someone who will teach you things, and a sponsor is someone who will put their name on the line for you and create action in the organization to get you to where you want to be. And so how do you get these people to do these things for you, mentor or sponsor you? Well, you know what your professional development goals are. And then you say, hey, these are the things that I want to work on. Is there anything else that you see that you think I should be working on too? And then you can create an action plan on how to get that experience, how to be tapped for those types of projects or whatever it may be that you may need some additional growth on, so you can position yourself for that next step in your career. Because it's not always about finding the next job, because we all know it takes a lot of freaking work to get to where we want to be. It doesn't just happen because we want it to happen.
And I think when these things come to our awareness, we can seize the opportunities. Yeah. The one thing that, I've heard time and time again, and I think that this is, if anyone wants to read through those recommendations I have, is that these reports bring to our awareness, especially, as women who typically don't brag, for lack of a better phrase. These reports bring out things in us that we kind of thought thought we had, but we weren't sure, or we just did it without even thinking that we were doing it, or that we
We're
didn't
just
realize.
doing our job. It's not special.
And even in our families, like all the things we do, I mean, it's never valued, and so it's all automatically. And I can really speak for myself, like as a bit of an older generation, but not too old that we're out of the workforce. We're still in the workforce, and we have a lot to offer, but we weren't brought up in this way that to value it, and so these reports bring to our attention all the things that we have to offer. And so when we see the opportunities, we can seize them because and we have language to be able to well, first we have the awareness to see them. And if we don't have this awareness, we're not going to be able to spot the opportunities. They're just going to go.
Yep. So somebody in the comments asked about rates and things like that. Michaela, I'll have Marci message you personally. And then for anybody who's thinking about, like, is it worth taking an assessment like this? You really have to evaluate what it is that you're prioritizing and the ROI on your time. We can spend a lot of time, years, trying to figure out who we are and what we want to do next. The reason why so many coaches utilize assessments, and for the coaches that are in the audience, the assessments that we use, we know that they're limiting. And so when we ask clients to take them, sometimes it can feel like they're being put in a box. Sometimes it can feel like there's still a gaping void in what the assessment isn't telling you. And so the reason why I wanted to talk about this assessment today is because it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. And so when you're trying to decide if this is something that you want to take or implement in your business, whether you're a coach or you're an HR leader or any type of leader within your organization, where you're trying to figure out, are the right people in the right places, how I'm going to create succession strategies and all of those things, get in touch with Marci, because she can explain it far better than I can. Like I said, I had no idea what to expect until I saw my results. And then once I saw my results, and then even seeing my results with somebody who has the exact description as me, but the nuanced differences in the different professional developments, the leadership target, there's just so many differences between one person to the next that it really helps you gain a holistic view of how to prioritize yourself, your client, or your team. So Marci, thank you so much for joining me today. What advice as a recruiter would you give to people when they're trying to figure out what comes next for them outside of taking this assessment? But why is it so important that they can come to you as a recruiter and say, this is who I am, this is what I want, and how do we work together?
Yeah. So I think, well, are you talking logistics or are you talking advice? What would you like me to touch on?
Like advice. Like, I mean, I know as a career coach, and all of the career coaches in here understand, hey, you need to know yourself and you need to confidently be able to approach a recruiter and say, this is the value that I bring to an organization, and this is what comes next for me. But it's really difficult to get clients to feel like it's okay to do that. So selfishly, I'm asking you to co-sign me and all the other coaches who are like, just do it. Know yourself and be proud of that. Own that.
And that's the key to anything, right? There's no progress unless we look at where we are now. There's no progress. I mean, if we think about, when we go to the doctor and we're thinking, maybe we're not feeling so great. Well, whatever it is, they're always going to look at things that are not on the surface, right? Yeah. They're going to take blood because there's markers in that information. So it's really no different. So I think that in this day and age, 2023, when the tools are available and when there are new tools available, that we should take advantage of those. I mean, I just posted on LinkedIn something about ChatGPT. It's a phenomenal tool. I use it, but it doesn't replace what I'm doing, and it doesn't. You have to know how to use it. It's the same. It's really the same thing. yes, you have an education, whatever your education is. Yes, you have X amount of years experience, but you have to dig deeper than that. You have to figure out how to then take that experience and education and accomplishments and spin it for what you want to do, so that you can be the leader and be proactive in your design of your career, rather than to be reactive.
Yep.
And so it's a process. It's a learning process. It's not perfect. You might take 2 steps forward and maybe one smaller step backward, but then you take a few more giant steps forward. And that's all any of us can do, is to keep taking steps forward. And really, I think the really beautiful thing, and you touched on this about this, is it's really not about digging through the past. It's really about where am now and what do I want for the future. Because when you're going through and answering those movie scenario questions, it's about the future. What role do you want to play in the movie? So the movie's being cast. It's going to start production and rehearsal. What do you want to do? It doesn't ask you, oh, what did you do yesterday? Because you know what you did yesterday is a lesson learned. Doesn't mean that you're going to do it today or tomorrow. If it worked, yes, you are. But if it didn't, you're not. And you need to have those options. And that's really the most important thing. And I find, and this is why the interview process is so broken, is because everyone's always focused on the past. And if you made a mistake, or you learned a lesson, or you did something in the past, but you want to do something in the future, there's no room for that in the traditional ways that we talk to ourselves, and the way that other people connect with us. So this is a new way of learning about ourselves and connecting with others. It's very much, oriented to present moment and immediate future. If there's such a thing as immediate future.
I know, it's always changing. Well, Marci, thanks so much for giving your time today to really explain the benefits of what this assessment can do for us as individuals, for how recruiters can use it in their practice, and really how coaches can use this to elevate their coaching business to better serve their clients. For everybody who's tuning in and who engaged in the conversation, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure you connect with Marci, not only because she's amazing and is a recruiter, but because good people know good people. And so when you connect, make sure that you share that, you saw her on this live, you'd love to stay in touch, whether or not you decide to, take her assessment or not. She's a fantastic person to know. For all of you who frequently join me for things, I am on a women empowerment kick. Men, right. There's no offense to you. It's just women are being disproportionately impacted by these layoffs. I mean, in tech alone, we make up 1/3 of the population. And a couple of people who said that there's, more minority women, people of color, et cetera, in their organizations, that they're seeing that's fantastic. I'd love to hear that, but we have a long way to go. And so for that reason, every single one of my events, whether it be a live or an audio room, are going to be geared towards women-focused things, which is why this assessment being bias-free in terms of gender stereotype roles really impressed me. Next week, I'm going to be doing an audio room with Marnie, and then the following week, Myra, and we're going to be diving into so many things. Feel free to join us again. Appreciate all of you. Marci, huge thank you to you, and we got to do this again.
Absolutely. I'm ready anytime. Thank you so much, Tegan, for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for attending and for your comments and participating. Thank you. And I look forward to hearing from anybody.
See you guys later.
Bye-bye.